well as how to terminate employees in Workforce Now. We'll walk through that process. We'll talk about where you can go to get help. I'll show you some things along the way in Workforce Now as far as online help, but also help outside of ADP. And then certainly any questions that you might have. And I'll try to pause as we go along here this afternoon and unmute the mics for questions if anybody has any. We do have an hour blocked off for this call. I don't think we're going to need the entire hour. It really just depends on questions that you might have for me about what you see today. All right, so that's our official agenda. And this quote came with the PowerPoint presentation. I thought it was kind of fun, so I left it in here. Good old Walt Disney giving us a quote to get us started. The way to get started is to quit talking and to begin doing. So that's exactly what we are going to do right now. So I'm going to go ahead and switch gears and switch over to ADP Workforce Now. All right, here we go. So I've already logged in to Workforce Now. This is what's called the home page or the splash page that everybody sees when they first log in. You and employees and district managers, anybody who logs in, this is the first screen that they'll see. And we're going to use this to communicate to the employees information about stuff that's going on with the organization. We're still kind of building this out somewhat, so it's kind of sparse right now, but we'll be making updates to this as we go along and adding additional information and functionality for the employees. The big announcement here is the company spotlight, where we talk about the self-service component of Workforce Now, where employees can use the Myself menu to actually view their own information and eventually make changes for themselves online. So once you've logged into the system, like I said, you're presented with this home page. You'll also see this blue menu bar across the top where it says Home, Resources, and People. Now, just keep in mind, my access to Workforce Now is a little bit different than what your access is going to be. So as we go along this afternoon, if you see something like a button that I've got that maybe when you log in you don't have, or maybe I've got a menu option up here that you don't have when you log in, that's perfectly fine. That is by design. Again, we're working out the access levels for general managers and district managers and operations folks. Again, that's still being worked on, but like I say, don't be alarmed. Like I say, if you see something today that you don't have, that's probably the way it's supposed to be anyway, so don't be too concerned. All right, so let's talk about finding employees in Workforce Now. Most of the time that you log in, like I said, it's going to be to look up information or maybe perform a task like a new hire or a term. But if you want to look up information for employees that report to you, there's a couple ways to get there. One is to use this menu bar, or I should say the search bar in the upper right-hand side. And I can click in that box and I can start typing in either the person's first or last name, and it will begin to filter to a list of employees who have those letters in their name. So you can see as I start to type in Duck, I've got Daisy Duck, Donald Duck, and Daisy Duck number 2. And bear with me one second, I'm just going to go ahead and take care of that. Okay, there we go. So again, and I can also type in Daisy, right? I could start typing in Daisy, and you can see it brings up that filtered list based on those letters. So let's take a look at Daisy Duck. Here we go. So there's basically 3 main screens that you'll go to look up employee information when you're in Workforce Now, and this is one of them. This is the employment profile screen. The other screens, I'm going to go up here to People. The other main screens you'll use are Personal Profile and Pay Profile, and we're going to look at each of those here this afternoon. So the employment profile screen, pretty basic. You can see the employee's information across the top here. And then I've got these tiles that I can see additional information related to their employment with the company. So their job title is showing up over here on the left under Position. If the person reported to a manager, I would see that here. If this is in fact a management position that the person is in, as well as some other information. Corporate group information as far as the department they're assigned to, the location that they work in. The middle tile here, of course, if they're active or not, their hire date. There's some additional date fields out here as well that will probably begin to be used as we move forward. Daisy doesn't have any, but you can see there's additional date fields here, as well as down here in the employment tile, like seniority date. Again, we'll be populating these as necessary going forward. And then regular rate of pay here on the right-hand side. This is also going to show up on the pay profile screen, but it's also mirrored here on the employment profile screen. Okay, So pretty basic as far as information related to their employment. Like I said, once you're here and on the employee's record, you can actually jump from one screen to another and stay on that same employee. So for instance, if I go back up to people and look at the personal profile for Daisy, this is where her, again, personal information or contact information mostly is stored. So obviously name information here, but again, contact information with email address, phone numbers, demographic information over here, address information. If the person had given us any emergency contacts, they would show up in this tile over here on the right. And then last but not least, the pay profile screen. If I go back up to people and click on pay profile, still keeps me on Daisy. But more information, of course, related to the person's actual paycheck. So here, again, in the center part of the screen, I can see their regular pay information. I can see any voluntary deductions that they may have. If they're set up for direct deposit information, here on the right. And if I scroll down a little bit more, here's their tax information for federal and state and local if we had it. Of course, we don't have any state or local taxes in Florida, but the person is coded to a state even though there are no withholding or unemployment taxes. That's a required field in ADP, so that you are going to see that when you log out here and look at their tax information. Okay. So pretty basic. Like I said, those are the three main screens that you're going to be reviewing for the most part. And if you'd like, you can, if you like what I've been doing here, I've been using the drop-down, right, and going to these menus. You can also flag these as favorites. See how there's this gold star next to the employment profile screen? I've got that same gold star in the menu bar, and if I click on that, you can see I've flagged that as a favorite, so I can go right to that screen. And you can do that with any of these. So I've seen a lot of clients who actually flag each of those as favorite screens to keep them in that little favorites bar so they can jump to them. So pretty straightforward. Now up here at the top of the window, and right now it's grayed out where it says this employee has no pay summaries for this position. This is going to show you the gross to net payroll information for the last check run. So you'll be able to see that on this window as well. If that's if you need that information, that's what's going to show in this gray box up here. Now it's empty, of course, because we haven't actually started processing payroll with ADP yet. But beginning next week, there'll be information that starts to show here, as well as on the right-hand side, you can see the year-to-date box. So if you needed information about the employee's year-to-date gross or taxes, that will be accumulated here for us to view as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and unmute the line for everybody for just a second and see if anyone out in the audience has any questions about what we've looked at so far. And you might have muted yourself too, so you might have to unmute your phone. But any questions about navigation or looking up information for an employee, or is there a piece of data maybe you're not seeing that you're wondering where it is? All right, excellent. As I mentioned earlier, I'm just going to go ahead and mute the lines again. As I mentioned earlier, there is online help available in these areas. And for the most part, you as a general manager in your role, like I said, apart from terminations and new hires, you're not really going to have a hand in basic employee changes at this point. But there are, like I said, there is online help on these windows as well. If you look in the upper left here where it says employment profile, there's a question mark that you can click on that brings up an online help window about different tasks that might be done on this particular screen, and there are hyperlinks you can read about how to change position or status, that kind of thing. And a lot of the screens also have these things called learning bites. If you see next to the question mark, there's this little icon. It almost looks like a play button on your Walkman. Back when we used to have cassettes. If I open that up, there are actually these are little videos. They run anywhere from 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes long on different subjects. So again, if you're in the system and you're not sure about what that particular screen does, or what you can do on that screen, the learning bites are available and you can view those at any time. Just real quick snippets. All right. Okay, let's take a look at putting in a new hire. Like I said, I think new hires and terminations are probably where you're going to have the most tasks to do in the system, if you want to look at it that way, as far as data entry goes. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to put a new hire in first, and then we'll do a termination. We'll come back and terminate Daisy. So to put a new hire in, I'm going to go up to the Process menu, and I'm going to slide down to this option called HR and Hire Rehire. Now, again, with my access, I've got a lot of options on here. For you, this is going to be pretty skinny. I think you're probably only going to have the HR menu with the Hire, Rehire, and Terminate options. So you won't get lost in the weeds with all these other things. You're not even going to probably see them when you log in. So don't be too concerned. But I'm going to go ahead and click on Hire, Rehire. And here we go. So you can see I've got some options. I can put a new hire in, or I could rehire an existing employee. Now, if I go ahead and start a new hire for somebody that is already in the database, the system is going to realize that, and once they realize that that Social Security number already exists, it will populate everything for you from when the person worked for you previously. It brings all that information back, and then you have an opportunity to edit it if necessary. So if the person has a new address, you could update it, but if it's the same, you don't have to. So it can save some key punching time. So again, if you're not sure if the person is a rehire or not, the system will let you know that, even if you pick the new hire option here. Okay, but obviously, if the person is a rehire and you know that, you can use the center tile here to bring them back. But in our case, we're going to do a brand new hire to the organization. So I'm going to click on Go to Hire. Again, you're presented with a couple of different options here. These are called wizards, and we've already created one specifically for Adizer, and you can see it's the one that looks like a little paintbrush here. It says Adizer Orlando New Hire. So in your case, what we're going to do is probably deactivate these other ones again, just to minimize confusion. So you'll only have the one option out here. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, the Adizer Orlando New Hire template. All right, here we go. You can see across the top we've got these numbers. These are the steps that it's going to walk us through for the new hire process that we're about to do. I do want to point out, though, as we start off, you can see Hire an Existing Candidate, Select Candidate. So again, this is a piece of the system that's still being worked on. The ADP recruiting module is still in implementation, and it might not be online for a little bit longer. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks it's in production, but we're not sure. So what we've done is you're currently using the workflow applicant tracking system, and you're going to continue to use that until the ADP recruitment module is ready. So the one part I'm not 100% on right now is the connector piece of how the candidates from workflow are going to be made available to you in Workforce Now. So more to come on that, okay? But with the ADP system and the recruitment module, once we have that up and running and you're collecting applications, if I was to click on the Select Candidate icon, and you can see, wow, look at that, Vickers has applied for a job, I would see a list of the folks that have applied for a position, and I could select them, and then everything that they have entered in on the recruitment module would be brought over automatically for us, okay? So again, I apologize from a process standpoint right now. I'm not exactly sure if you'll be presented the same way with the workflow system or if that will come from somewhere else, but more to come on that. I promise we will get you definitive information on how to use the two systems once we have it. Again, we're in process with workflow right now to build that integration. So again, please be patient. More to come on that piece. So I'm not going to go ahead and use that candidate. I'm just going to go ahead and start entering in somebody as a new hire. Let's see, Todd Smith is my new hire. I know it might be a little bit smaller on your side, but there are red asterisks by some of these fields next to name, next to payroll name. So these are, of course, are required. That's what that red asterisk means. So if you bypass that asterisk and you try to save your new hire, the system will give you an error message saying that you've missed a required piece of data and ask you to go back and fill it out before you can actually commit the new hire to the database. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you miss one of those, it will remind you that you've got to fill that in. This associate ID box, this populated for me automatically, so there's nothing I need to do there. I'm just going to let ADP assign that associate ID for me. And then as I go forward, you can see there's additional information around contacts, emails, Hire date. Now the hire date is required. I'm going to say we hired them today. The reason for the hire, 9 times out of 10, I'm filling an existing position in the company. And then something called a company code. And again, this is going to be the same for everybody. And unfortunately, I cannot make that automatically populate for you, so you are going to have to complete it. But the good news is there's only one value for you to pick, and it's this HDJ code. So just use the drop down, and it's the only one there, and you'll be okay. Now, another feature of Workforce Now that is ready for us at this point is the onboarding feature. And you can see I'm presented now with this question or option here in the middle. To save time, you can ask the new hire to enter their personal information. You must complete the remaining steps. Ask the new hire is this button. So I do have to fill in some information to start off with, and in my case, I would definitely need the email address for that person, because what I can do at this point is if I click on Ask the New Hire, and it's going to tell me I can't do it because there's no email address, it will actually send an email to that new hire asking them to complete the majority of this information for me. Things like their W-4 information or the direct deposit information, or again, their contact information. So that's the onboarding feature that's available through ADP that we're taking advantage of. So again, as long as you've got an email address that you can send that link to, that new hire gets the email, they will register for the ADP portal site, and then they can go ahead and complete that information for us. We don't have to key it in. It doesn't get us out of everything, but it does take care of a lot of the fields that we would normally capture. Tax ID type, of course, this is going to be the Social Security number. I do have to key it in twice just to make sure there's no key punch errors. I should have paid attention to what I was entering, so I didn't do it the same way 2 times. Gender is required as well. Now, it can be not specified, but there is a value that's required there. And then birth date is also a required field. Address information, again, this is information that we could capture from the new hire. They could fill this out for us. Let's put in some information here. Work address, if you want to capture that, you can, but again, it's not required. Demographic information, this is actual marital status. So when you're seeing this, this is not W-4 information. You can see down here I've got a step for tax information, but this is the person's actual marital status. If you knew what that was and you wanted to track it, you could. Also, keep in mind as we're going through here, you might have noticed on the right-hand side there are some additional areas that I can click into to add additional information for the employee. So if you wanted to enter in that information here, you certainly could as part of the new hire process. Preferred name, if the person has a nickname that they want to put in, you could do that. And again, down at the bottom, there's information for EEOC, Medicare, Medicaid. So if you have that information, you want to enter it, you can. Employment information. So again, it's walking us through the process. You can see at the top our timeline there. Step 1 is done. We're on step 2. Again, another identifier in the ADP system is something called file number. The system is going to automatically populate that for us, so there's nothing that we need to do there. Just allow it to populate to whatever the next available file number is. Job title. I'm going to assign the job title to the employee. Worker category, full-time, part-time. If they report to somebody, and even if that somebody is you, you can use the pencil icon here and then assign them to the correct general manager, again, even if that's you. And you're going to want to do that so that you have visibility of them within the database, right? The direct reports that you have, you'll be able to see. So you want to make sure that you assign them to you as the manager if that's the appropriate action. Some additional fields, home department. I know we're capturing that. A person may have a work email address. If they do, you can enter that here if you'd like to. If not, it's not required. Payroll information, this is where their pay rate is going to go. So I've got to pick the type of pay that they're going to receive. Most of the time it's going to be hourly. Put in the hourly rate. I'm not going to do anything with this field called standard hours. I'm just going to leave that blank because we're going to be using the POS system for time and attendance. So like we are today, right, SciComm, I want to make sure that they're paid based on the hours that are coming out of SciComm, not some average number of hours per pay period. So I'm going to leave that blank. Again, you can see a lot of these things are just defaulting for me. I don't have to make entries to them. Tax information. Again, this could be captured from the onboarding module, but if not, I can go ahead and fill it in on behalf of the new hire. Notice again, as I mentioned earlier, I do have to enter in a worked-in state and a state for unemployment, even though Florida doesn't have a withholding tax. They do have an unemployment tax. So I do have to code the employee to the right jurisdiction. And again, for us, it's always going to be Florida. Now, if the person, if you don't use onboarding for whatever reason, and the person gives you a W-4 form, of course, the post-2020 W-4 form has a lot of different fields on it. Those fields are actually over here on the right. You can see there's the federal additional tax amount or federal W-form fields. As far as if the person has another job or other income, they can list their dependents on that form. So by clicking on that hyperlink on the right-hand side, you get this slide-in window that allows you to enter that additional information. And then last but not least, direct deposit. If the person has elected direct deposit or the Wisely cards from ADP, which you may have heard about, maybe not, but that's something that's coming. It's a debit card that we'll be offering to the employees as a benefit. This is where that information would go. So I would select if it's a checking or savings account, put in the routing number and the account number, and determine if it's based on what they've told me, if it's a full amount or if it's a partial amount. And an employee can have up to 3 different direct deposit accounts. So if they did have a checking and a savings, you could add both of those. Notice here on the right, I've got this add an account link. So I'd enter in the first one, click on add an account, and then I could add the second one. Doesn't matter what order you put them in. You could put in the full amount before you put in the partial amount. Doesn't make any difference. It'll still work the way that we want it to. Okay. So that's about as easy as it gets to put in a new hire. Like I said, I'm not going to commit this one to the database because it's just dummy information. But you can see it walks you through a step at a time. The required fields will make sure that we're capturing the information that the company's decided is important, that we want to make sure we're tracking. Like I said, we're going to be bringing in candidate information from the recruitment module very shortly. Leverage the onboarding piece because, again, that's going to take a lot of that key punching off of your plate and move it over to the applicant, allowing them to take ownership and have responsibility for that information. So, again, it's less key punching that we need to do. So take advantage of that. All right, so I will go ahead and unmute again and see if anyone has any questions about what they've seen so far. Okay, sounds good. Well, remember, like I said, you'll have the recording if you want to view it again to see how we walked through this today. And we're going to talk about getting some help here in just a few minutes if you need it. So I'm going to go ahead and do a cancel to get out of here. And I'm just going to mute those lines again just to minimize any background noise. All right, so let's talk about terminating an employee. As I showed you a few minutes ago, when we went to the new hire process, we went to the process menu and we went down here to hire rehire. Terminate is also on this menu as well, but you don't necessarily have to come here. I find it easier to find the employee that I want to terminate first and then kick the process off. So let me show you what that looks like. So let's go back to Daisy. And I'm going to pick Daisy Duck number 2. So once you're in the employee's master file and you're on this particular screen, I think that you can also do this from the payroll profile screen, but we'll do it from employment profile. This tile in the middle where it says status, and you can see the green bar here. Next to the word active is an icon. It's supposed to look like a little pencil. That's the edit icon. So what we're going to be able to do is click on that edit icon. And when I do, again, I'll get this slider window that comes in from the right. And it says select a new status is required. So I've got to tell the system, well, what status do I want to change them to, from active to what? And in my example, I want us to change them to terminated. And then down at the bottom, I've got a button that says Start. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And here we go. So you can see I'm still on Daisy Duck, right? That's the employee that I navigated to change her status. And now I'm in the termination wizard, if you will, that's going to walk me through terminating this person in Workforce Now. Super straightforward, right? When is Daisy's termination date? Let's say it is today. I'm going to say today is her last day of work. Again, keep an eye out for the asterisks. Those, of course, mean that that's a required field. So I've got to pick a reason as to why Daisy is leaving the company. We'll just say that it was a mutual agreement. I can flag if it was voluntary or involuntary. And a question came up in the call with the district managers about selecting involuntary, and what if I went to rehire this person, would I get a message? And I'm still researching that question with ADP to see exactly what you would be presented with if you went to rehire, or if somebody else, right, at another store tried to rehire Daisy, and we had, it's right here, eligible for rehire. I'm talking about voluntary, involuntary. This checkbox here, Daisy is eligible for rehire. If I deselect that, that's saying that she's not eligible for rehire. And again, what would a general manager in another store be presented with if they tried to hire this person? So more to come on that. I'll follow up with you and the rest of the team once I've got an answer back from ADP. But I'm going to leave it as voluntary. We'll say that she is eligible for rehire. Most of the time, severance is not going to be paid, but that's what this box is for. And if there was any supporting documentation, for instance, if Daisy had written a resignation letter, and we wanted to include that as part of the termination here and include it as part of the record, as long as we have that termination letter in an electronic format, we could drop it here. So if they did it in a Word document, emailed it to us, or if we scanned it, we could bring that here and it would be attached as part of the record of the termination. I can also type in notes down here at the bottom. This is just a free-form text box. Any additional information that I'd like to track in regards to this termination, I can enter down here at the bottom. Once I've gone through this process of entering in this information, I'm going to click on the next button. And then again, this is just simply a review of the information that I've entered. The termination date, last day worked. If I see something that doesn't look quite right, I can go back and change it. Again, I've got the pencil icon up here on the right. It just flips me right back to where I was. And I can say, well, her last day of work was actually yesterday, not today. Click on next, review it again. And then if I click on submit, the system would then change her status from active to terminated. Keep in mind, new hires and terminations are going to be workflowed to the HR department for final approval. So what would happen in this case is if I was to submit this, Joanna or somebody in the HR department would get a message saying that there's been a termination requested that needs your approval. She would have the ability to review it and then actually approve that transaction before it writes to the database. Same with new hires. Those new hires are going to be workflowed to the HR department for approval as well. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, online help is available within the application. If you get stuck, if you're not sure about something, you can certainly leverage that. But also, you can reach out to the folks in the home office. You can reach out to Joanna, Carolina, and I believe Tracy is also available. Tracy's a new resource that we have in home office that's helping out. Those ladies will be available to help you with questions and concerns that you might have. I'm also available, but we're going to funnel all the questions through that team first, and if they need to get me involved, they will. But we thought it'd be best to have just sort of a single source, if you will, for information and questions. So certainly reach out to home office if you get stuck or if you have questions about a process or anything else that you've seen today. All right, well, that's pretty much everything I wanted to show you. So let me go ahead and unmute the lines again and just open it up for questions. Any questions about anything you've seen today or something that you haven't seen that maybe you have a question about from a process perspective or anything else? Quiet group on a Friday. Going once? Twice? All right. Well, guys, again, thank you so very much for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate it. I hope you found this helpful. The best way to learn the application is to get in and kind of play with it and, navigate around and look at things and, get lost, find yourself, that kind of stuff. Your access will be coming very shortly. Again, we're just finalizing the security pieces of Workforce Now before we roll out everyone logging in, but that will be here very soon, and you'll be logging into the system. And again, thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it, and good luck with Workforce Now. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Bye-bye. A question, yes.
Okay, so when are we supposed to get those emails so they can start practicing with the app?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would look for those to come out probably sometime next week. I can't give you an exact date, but we'll make sure that we communicate when those registration emails go out, so you'll be on the lookout for them. You'll get an email. It'll come from ADP. It's kind of a generic email address. There'll be a couple of emails. One will have your user ID, and the other one will have a temporary password with the instructions to complete the registration. It's a super easy process. Takes all of about 5 minutes. You create your password, your permanent password. You set up challenge questions and responses for yourself, and then boom, you're in. So again, look for that. Like I say, we'll communicate when those emails go out, but it's going to be one day next week.
Joanna, are we going to still entering people on certify until this happens, or are we going to wait to hire people?
No, I never wait to hire people. Yes, you can do it until the end of the month, this September 30th. So, but I strongly recommend that as soon as you receive your access login credentials, and as everybody else start using it, so we will get very familiar with the new ADP system.
Yeah, and we know you're anxious to get in there, guys. We appreciate your patience. Like I said, we're just working out the final details on the security piece, so thanks for your patience. Anybody else?
Any
Hey guys, I did have a question. This is Eddie. My question, unfortunately, is for the group. I see we got 61 participants in all. Obviously, some folks are missing. If you are, can you kindly give us a heads up? If you're with your DM, come send us an email, just so we can account for the folks that are here sharing screens and we don't have you on the roster. Appreciate it, guys.
Follow up my GMs.
Good point. Anything else? All right. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you very much.